In this micro training, we are going to be discussing power struggles and how they relate to working with people with intellectual disabilities. We're going to focus on power struggles between staff and the individuals receiving services. We're going to briefly discuss 5 types of power struggles. The first is an attempt to gain power over the other individual. Second is when an individual wants to obtain or do something. Third, when important to outweighs important for. 4, hot buttons. And 5, past events. Before we get any further into this training, I want to remind everybody that people have the right to choose and the right to refuse. If you can remember this, it will help prevent you from getting into power struggles. There are 3 stages to power struggles. First, let's look at agitation. Agitation is the beginning stage of a power struggle. This is when the person name calls, yells, swears at the staff member. If the power struggle is continued by staff, it will eventually lead to intimidation. With intimidation, the individual or staff begins to make threatening statements and may even begin to posture physically. This is the staff member's last chance to stop the power struggle before it advances to the next stage. The next stage is aggression. This can be physical aggression toward others or toward that person themselves, and it may also include property destruction. It's important staff is able to recognize the power struggle at the agitation level so it never gets to the point of aggression. Once again, it's our job to make sure we stop power struggles as soon as possible, and we can only do that if we recognize these stages. The power struggle I want to cover is the attempt by staff to gain control over another person. For example, if you don't turn the TV off and do your exercise goal, we're not going to be able to go to the dance on Friday. In this example, staff is trying to gain control of the person to get them to do their exercise goal. The staff then uses something that's important to the person against them to try to gain compliance. One thing staff need to be mindful of is we do not have authority over the people we provide services to. Since we do not have authority, we cannot expect compliance. Situations like this can be handled much differently. Instead of making a demand or threats to gain control over the person, staff could give options. I notice you haven't worked on your exercise goal yet. Let's do something together. We can go for a walk, we can go for a bike ride, or we can go to the YMCA to play basketball. Which one of these would you like to do? Sometimes staff need to just go with the flow. If a person chooses not to do their exercise goal on occasion, it's not the end of the world. Many times when a person chooses not to do something, it only affects them and not other people. Also, many times the person is choosing not to do something solely based on how staff presented that topic to them. Another way power struggles begin is when an individual wants to do something. Many times when this occurs, the individual will ask staff if they can do that activity. After 18 years of working in this field, I can say from personal experience most of the time they are not asking to do anything out of the ordinary. Many times they are asking to do something very basic. For example, a person arrives home from work, being at his day program all day. He then states to staff, "Hey, I had a really good day today. Can we go to the gas station and buy a snack? I'm really hungry." In many cases, staff will respond with statements such as, "You just went and bought a snack from the gas station last weekend. You don't need to go there twice in 1 week. Besides, it's a waste of money." Or, "Gas station snacks are really unhealthy. Why don't you just have a piece of fruit instead?" Basically, staff is just shutting the idea down and trying to give as many reasons as possible. Many times this is happening because the staff simply didn't want to leave the house. However, think about this logically. In your personal life, if you want to stop at the gas station to buy a snack, you just do it, right? You don't need the permission from anybody. You don't have people telling you it's a waste of money or unhealthy. You get to make the choice. Unless there is a serious health, safety, or financial concern, we should try to accommodate a person's requests. If there are problems with the logistics, then we discuss other options. Anytime you just shut somebody down when they have a request, you are starting a power struggle. A key part of being a human being is having free will. If we try to override a person's free will on a consistent basis, we are going to have power struggles taking place on a consistent basis. Another common type of power struggle is when a person wants something. As I said before, these are usually basic requests as well. Many times these are requests such as, "Hey, can I have a glass of my pop?" Staff then responds, "You know pop is really unhealthy for you. Why don't you just have a glass of water instead? Besides, you don't need to have a pop every day, do you?" Many times when a person has a basic request such as getting a glass of pop, staff will also have them jump through hoops to get the pop. For example, "You can have a glass of pop, but first you have to clean your bedroom." Or if you want to have a pop, "You're going to have to exercise today for 45 minutes instead of a half hour." This is the beginning of a power struggle. When a person's basic wants and needs are met with opposition on a daily basis, you're going to have power struggles on a daily basis. Many times this is the antecedent to interfering behaviors. Imagine how frustrating it would be to have to get permission to do something as simple as drinking a glass of pop. We'll also be confronted with power struggles when we focus on what's important for somebody and not what's important to them. It's important that we don't let important 4 outweigh important 2 when we are working with people receiving services. Imagine if your success in your life was determined solely on if you exercised today, made correct decisions 100% of the time, took your meds on time, and ate right. Nobody would be successful. We all have things that are important to us. Sometimes those things may contradict with what is important for us, but we still choose to do them anyways. If you're trying to force people to give up things that are important to them, it will lead to power struggles. It is our job to find a balance between the two. If you can take one thing from the previous slide, remember, nobody willingly does anything that is important for him unless a piece of it is important to him. If you can remember this, you will never have a power struggle due to these reasons. Hot buttons are another common cause of power struggles. This is when an individual receiving services pushes your buttons to get a reaction. There are several different hot buttons. They could be name-calling, racial slurs, spitting, physical aggression, different types of verbal aggression, and so on. It's important to be able to identify what your hot buttons are so you don't allow your hot buttons to let you start or engage in a power struggle. For example, you get to work at 4 p.m., an individual serve greets you at the door by saying, "Oh great, this idiot's working again." If being called names is a hot button for you, it has just been pushed at the beginning of your shift. Maybe a couple hours have passed on your shift. Now that same individual asks you to help them with a task, such as cleaning their room. Then you respond, "I won't help you clean your room until you apologize for calling me an idiot." Then the person yells, "No, I'm not apologizing. You are an idiot." In turn, staff states, "Fine, I'm not helping you then. You'll have to find somebody else." Then the individual starts throwing objects in his room. It's imperative staff recognize the stages of a power struggle so they don't get to the point of physical aggression or property destruction. Our job is to be sure power struggles do not happen in the first place, and our main job is not to be the one starting them. Staff, we can also start power struggles by using the past against somebody. For example, remember last week I brought you to the store because you said you'd do your exercise goal when you got home. Then we got home and you still refused to do it. I don't make the same mistakes twice. It's important that we don't focus on past events to determine if we do something for somebody in the present. This can create a power struggle. Many times, people we serve with intellectual disabilities are not able to associate past events with the present and how they may affect the present. We should focus on teaching skills in the present instead, not using the past against somebody when it comes to making decisions. Many times power struggles cause staff to make empty threats or give ultimatums. Think about the example I used earlier. If you don't turn off the TV and do your exercise goal, you're not going to be able to go to the dance this weekend. Think about this. You used the dance as the ultimatum because you knew it was extremely important to the person. Let's say this statement is made on Tuesday and the dance is on Friday. If the person chooses not to exercise on Tuesday but then exercises the rest of the week, are you really going to stop them from going to the dance on Friday, knowing it's potentially going to cause that person to have a meltdown? No. Friday is going to come along and the person is still going to ask you to go to the dance. Knowing the potential repercussions, you're going to bring that person to the dance. Therefore, on Tuesday, you made an empty threat. Many people we work with are not able to associate consequences with actions in the first place, especially if several days have passed, so even if you decide to stick with the statement you made on Tuesday, the person is not going to be able to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and in return will become frustrated and angry when you tell them they're not allowed to go to the dance. Also, you will never win a power struggle. The person receiving services will always be willing to take it to the next level if you don't stop the power struggle in its tracks at the beginning. Think about this logically. If the person receiving services starts breaking things, that's their choice. However, if you start breaking property, that could potentially be a crime. It's the same with physical aggression. If it ever gets to that point, the person receiving services may end up hurting themselves or others. Yes, there may be some natural consequences to that, but if you as a staff take it to that level, you could be investigated for abuse. Unfortunately, on occasion, power struggles lead to emergency use of manual restraints to keep the person safe from harming themselves or others when the situation could have been stopped earlier and all of that trouble could have been avoided. Once you get to that point, you're damaging your relationship with that person and breaking any trust they may have had with you. Many times it will take a long time to build up that trusting relationship again, or it may be damaged permanently. Let's look at the right way of doing things. Of course, all these things require practice. They also require getting to know the people you're working with. The first thing you need to do is deflate your ego. If somebody says something that you don't like, don't take it personally. You don't have to be right all the time, and you have to be willing to accept that you are wrong at times. People make mistakes, and we should learn from them. Remember, it takes two people to get into a power struggle, so don't take the bait. Don't get hooked. Also, don't dangle the bait in front of a person receiving services. Staff also cause power struggles at times. If you know somebody's triggers, avoid them. By avoiding them, you avoid the potential behaviors that follow. When somebody has a request, you have three options: yes, no, and let's talk about it. If you say no to somebody, it should be an emergency situation. The only option is no. No is a trigger, and by saying no, you are pulling on the trigger. Best case scenario, you're able to do whatever the request is and you just say yes. When you say yes, there will not be a power struggle. Your other option is to say, let's talk about it. This is where you may not be able to do what the person requests, but you want to try to walk them through the situation and come to a mutual agreement by the end. It's important to repeat the request and then open a two-way conversation. Oh, you want to go to the gas station to get a pop? Let's talk about that. Make sure you're trying to stay calm and your physical cues match your verbal cues. If you say, let's talk about it, then roll your eyes, the person is going to catch that. Be mindful of how you are presenting yourself. Your verbal cues should match your physical cues. If you see somebody engaging in a power struggle, it's okay to switch staff. Don't take it personally if another staff tries to step in and disengage the power struggle. You may have to swallow your pride and walk away. It's for a good reason. Remember, you are a professional. And finally, one of the most important tools we can use is active listening. This goes along with let's talk about it. Give physical and verbal cues that show you are interested in helping the person and that you're actually taking their requests and concerns seriously. You can do this by repeating what they're saying back to them, making eye contact, nodding your head, and letting them know you really want to know what they're trying to say. It's also part of our job to inform people we work with of the possible natural consequences of their choices and then let them decide what they want to do. For example, if a person is choosing not to do their exercise goal, we can tell them some of the natural consequences that may go along with that choice. You may say something like, remember last time you didn't exercise, you said you didn't have any energy and you didn't feel good. Or remember your doctor said if you don't exercise regularly, you may have some health problems in the future. You can also inform them of the natural consequences of good choices. Remember how great you felt and how happy you were the last time you exercised? You were smiling and said you hadn't felt that good in weeks and that your clothes were fitting better. Also remember your doctor said when you do exercise regularly that you may not have to take that medication anymore. We've gone over all of these power struggles in this presentation. I just want to let you know that you may be presented with more situations that may lead to a power struggle. It's our duty as staff to make sure that we either A, don't get involved with the power struggle, or B, we end the power struggle as soon as possible. And if you go to work and don't participate in any power struggles for that shift, consider it a victory.